All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the winners and losers segment. And you know how this works. If players or parts of the team do well, we go in the winners category. And if they don't, well, they go in the losers category. So let's start this off with the winners. Jaylen Warren, he's a winner. And listen to the stat line: 14 carries, 70 yards, a 5.0 average rushing. He did not score a touchdown, but had a 14-yard long run. He also had 2 receptions for 21 yards, 10.5-yard average, 18-yard long on 2 targets. So again, 91 cumulative yards for Jaylen Warren. Just really, really awesome. And he is by far their best offensive weapon. And this is why I always ask the question, why aren't they keeping him on the field more? They go through these, well, let's get Caleb Johnson a series. Let's get Kenny Gainwell a series. Sometimes you just have to ride the hot hand, and it just feels like for whatever reason, the Steelers are so adamant to not do that. I mean, it's a situation where Jaylen Warren getting 16 rushes shouldn't be a big deal, yet it is, and he gets 14. All right, let's continue. The pass rush is the other winner. The Steelers sacked Justin Herbert 5 times with 9 quarterback hits. If you want to know who had those 5 sacks, here you go. Keanu Benton had 1. Nick Herbig had 1. TJ Watt had 1. And Alex Highsmith had 2. Just got to say, big shout out to Justin Herbert for being tackled in the front part of his shoulder pads by Alex Highsmith and getting up as if that's some type of penalty. A horse collar is in the back, brother, not in the front. I don't know what he was crying about, but still, the Steelers pass rush, they did their job. They got after Herbert. Herbert did get rid of the ball quickly. I think the run defense was disappointing because you really were hoping that they would not let Vidal get started, and it would potentially lead to this play action pass, Justin Herbert with more time. It wasn't that great, but I will say the pass rush was, and that's why that's the second winner on the docket this week. So now we turn to the losers. For the first time as a member of the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers is on the loser list. He finishes 16 of 31, 161 yards, a 5.2-yard average. He threw 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, was sacked 3 times for 13 yards, and a rating of 50.6. I don't know if anyone stayed up and watched it, but that 161 yards, that's inflated. And when I say it's inflated, the Chargers have gone into complete prevent, and he moved the ball down, and he throws a touchdown to Roman Wilson, and it definitely makes his stat line look better than what it was. Think back to last weekend's Indianapolis. Daniel Jones' stat line showed that he probably had a pretty good game. He didn't. He looked awful. He was getting pressured like crazy. That's just the way it is. Aaron Rodgers, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, I felt like almost maybe 90% of the offensive issues that happened and took place during the game stemmed from number 8. It stemmed from Aaron Rodgers. Was it all about bad quarterback play? The more I think about it, the more I talk about it, the more I think that, yes, that is the answer. So Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, is a loser for the first time as a member of the Steelers. Let's go to the second loser. Third down offense. They finished 2 for 11, which is awful in its own right. But I mentioned that the garbage time yardage from Aaron Rodgers, well, the third down, 2 for 11, those 2 came during garbage time. When it mattered the most, the Steelers were 0 for 9. They did not convert on third down once until garbage time. Let that sink in, because the Steelers' third down offense coming into this game was converting at a 38.2% clip. And it was not even close to that. not even close. And so when you look at the Chargers' third down defense, they were one of the better defenses, only surrendering first downs on 35.2 or 35.8% of the conversion attempts. That number is going to improve for them. So the third down offense, that is a loser. Next is the turnovers and the turnover ratio. So the Steelers turned it over 3 times, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble. That was a muff punt by Keyshawn Williams. They end up -3. So it's not just the fact they turned it over 3 times. That is bad. Don't get it wrong. But I will say also that the Steelers not getting takeaways and having that -3 ratio is what is truly, truly tough to swallow. And I'm not like Mike Tomlin. I'm not putting everything on the offense or on the defense. He rarely ever blames the offense. He'll come out and say things like, well, the offense could have done this, Y, or Z, but he always comes back to the defense needs to be that group. They need to be that team. And he mentioned it again in the postgame show that, or he's at least at halftime. I'm not sure about postgame, where he talked about how the Chargers took advantage of their opportunities and the Steelers didn't. That's Mike Tomlin to a T. And so when you think about it, and that's what they're preaching, the fact that they turned it over 3 times and didn't take it away and having a -3 ratio, it's pretty bad. All right, the next loser are the pass catchers. The pass catchers. Now, I understand, and I just did talk about Aaron Rodgers and how almost all of the mistakes made were stemmed from him. There were a lot of bad passes, but when you a prime example is the Steelers are trying to make a comeback, trying to make something out of it. And Calvin Austin runs a little in route. He's wide open. Aaron Rodgers puts it right where he should, right in the hands, and it goes right through his hands too. Dante Jackson. Yes, former Steeler that was acquired in the trade for Deontay Johnson from the Panthers. That cornerback, he intercepts the pass. You just can't have that. You just can't have those type of plays because that's where, and I'll say this on the postgame show and I'll say it again here. This was the first game this season that I felt, man, the Steelers could use another really good wide receiver. And you might say, Jeff, like, welcome to the party. Like, where have you been? It's not that I don't think that the Steelers couldn't benefit from having another really good wide receiver or another viable option at wide receiver. My premise is I didn't think that it was necessary with the way they use their tight ends, with the way they want to run their offense. But on Sunday night, it was evident. The pass catchers need some help. Is that MVS, Marcos Valdes-Scantling? I don't know. But they need some help. All right, let's go to the red zone offense. The red zone offense finishes 0 for 1. But that's not the stat line. The stat line is that in a course of 4 quarters, a full game, they only got into the red zone once. They only got there once. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who as a red zone offense was a top 10 group, converting 68% of the time, they only got to the red zone once, and they failed when they got there. I don't know. This offense is bad. Obviously, there's going to be a trend with a lot of these losers being on the offensive side of the ball, and we're going to continue. The next loser is the time of possession. Check out these numbers. The Los Angeles Chargers possessed the ball for 37 minutes and 35 seconds, whereas the Steelers 22 minutes and 25 seconds. That is incredible how lopsided that is. I talked about at the very beginning of the show how lopsided this contest was. No statistic dictates this and this is more emblematic of a lopsided contest than this one. 37-35 to 22-25. Let that sink in. It was that bad. All right. We're going to continue here. And if I can find my tab, there we go. Sorry about the delay there. All right. So the next loser after the time of possession is the running game. It's, again, the Steelers ran the ball and they were kind of effective when they did it. They averaged 4.7 yards per carry, but it's the fact they only ran it 16 times. And Jaylen Warren has 14 carries for 70 yards. That's a 5-yard average. Why can't they just run the ball more? Mike Tomlin was asked about this after the game, and he said, well, we weren't doing anything well. So you're not going to run the ball. We're not doing anything well. I kind of disagree with that. When your quarterback is chucking the ball all over the field, not necessarily to the receivers, you want to do something right. And I've always subscribed to the theory of a good ground game, a good running game will travel. Teams that can run the ball well, that's great. You can go on the road and run it. Run it. Be effective running it. The Steelers weren't ineffective running it. They just didn't run it enough. And then you throw in the whole Jaylen Warren not being used in these critical moments. He's on the sideline. I don't understand it. Don't understand it at all. Let's go to the next losers, the offensive line. 3 sacks surrendered, 73 yards rushing. It's not that the Chargers had statistically these great numbers. Again, 3 sacks is not abnormal. This team does get after the quarterback. They had 5 quarterback hits, but the offensive line just didn't look right. And I don't know if maybe Isaac Seumalo is kind of like the straw that stirs the drink, or if Isaac Seumalo is the veteran that kind of keeps everything together, the glue guy, so to speak. I don't know, but it didn't look right. And it looked like, Broderick Jones had some really bad reps in this game, but so did Troy Falatanu on more than one occasion. Everyone was pumping Troy Falatanu up last week after a great game against Indy. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that the Steelers had no consistency whatsoever with the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers could never get comfortable, always had happy feet, was always looking over his shoulder, waiting for that blindside hit. He took some really big shots, even on plays that weren't considered a quarterback hit, or they weren't considered a sack or anything like that. This offensive line, this is the first injury they've sustained this year along the offensive line, Isaac Seumalo being out. It is definitely interesting to see what they're going to do moving forward, how they plan on things. They've got to make adjustments, just like the offense as a whole needs to make adjustments, but that's why the offensive line's on the loser list. All right, let's got 2 more here. The next is officiating. So I have no clue what they're seeing. And this is not just, again, this has nothing to do with this. Is not me being a homer. But when DK Metcalf is running a route and Derwin James comes down and hits him when the ball is in the air, how is that not some form of penalty? It could be illegal contact. It could be defensive pass interference, garden variety. Choose whatever you want. But then you go to the NBC coverage, and they're bringing in, I think it's Bill Cawley or whatever their rules guy is, and he's trying to justify, based on Derwin Gray's feet and where he set, he basically tackled DK Metcalf. The Steelers didn't get that call. There were other calls where DK Metcalf getting down the sideline, having his arm barred down, and he has to try and grab it with one hand. The Steelers were trying to get these penalties. You know that Aaron Rodgers will see certain situations, especially if a defender's back is to him and it's one-on-one coverage. He's going to throw it up there more often than not, knowing that, hey, we could draw a penalty, get a new set of downs. We could gain some serious yardage if it's DPI, defensive pass interference, or my guy makes a catch, makes a play. And they weren't getting any of those calls. But it also goes beyond that. There were multiple offsides calls, false starts, and you could see it blatant. It was clear as day. The TV view, you were watching these tackles for the Chargers. They're trying to get a step, and I understand why. But, man, they're just not calling it. I'm not trying to excuse the loss here, but it's just one of those situations where it just felt really, really bad for me watching it play out. And the last loser, well, the Steelers, they are prime time losses. The stat line, the Steelers have been in prime time a lot in the last 4 weeks. 3 out of their last 4 games have been in prime time. Go back to Thursday Night Football in Cincinnati. Then they host the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. They go to LA on Sunday night. This past game, 3 straight primetime losses. That is not Mike Tomlin's MO. Mike Tomlin is usually very good in primetime. The Steelers usually play up with that national attention, the national spotlight. It has not happened this year. And it makes me think, what do we have to do to get that Monday night Miami game flexed to a Sunday? Now, just so you know, I don't think that's going to happen. That's the Hall of Honor induction weekend for the Steelers. I have a feeling that if the NFL tries to move that, the Steelers might say, well, we have a lot of stuff going on, and it's all based on the Monday night game. It would be really difficult to move it. I'm not banking on that getting moved, but I really don't want to see the Steelers in primetime anymore. I've seen enough. I've seen enough to know I've seen too much. So, all right, folks, that does it for me. This has been a downer of an episode, and I apologize. When we come back on Wednesday, we'll have Behind enemy lines, getting ready for the Bengals again, second time around. See what's different, what's the same. We'll have a guest on for that. We'll have the mailbag. Make sure you check out my Twitter handle at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT on Tuesday. I'll pose the question. You ask the question in that reply thread, and I will answer it on the show on Wednesday. And make sure you check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. Really proud of that website, steelcurtainnetwork.com. Check it out. We'll have a lot of great content. Win, lose, or draw, doesn't matter. You can comment, create a free account by going to the top, log in, and let us know what you think about this team. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on your brain. It's a great way to do it. That's it for me. We finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great start to your week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go Steelers.